Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show, Outpost Gray. I'm your host, Jack Scott, where I provide you weekly information and interviews in the cybersecurity space. Have you ever wanted to just sit down and talk to an offensive security professional to really understand kind of the nuts and bolts of this industry? Well, today is your opportunity because our guest has over 23 years experience as an offensive security professional. Phillip Wylie goes by a myriad of names, which include instructor, speaker, mentor, published author, penetration tester, and a cybersecurity influencer. He also has his own podcast, which we will dive into during this interview. I'm thrilled to have him on the show today so he can share his experience in this field, what offensive security means to him, and some insights into individuals that may want to be getting into the space. So stay tuned. And remember, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and share with others. Thank you guys for your support. Hey, Phil, what's up? How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jax, great to be here. It's an honor. I like the pink highlights. They go well with your chair.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to notice those. I bet the viewers are like, does she actually have pink hair? I do. Yeah, what happened was I was going to an event this last week and I needed to get some new shampoo, and I'm a cosmetologist, and I went to the cosmetology store. You have to have a license to get in there. And I went in there and I grabbed what I thought was like purple shampoo. It's like a type of shampoo that keeps your hair blonde and doesn't get brassy. And then when I got it home, I realized it was not purple shampoo. It was hair color, temporary hair color. So I said, you know what, YOLO. So I went ahead and did it. And yeah, I showed up at the event, and eventually it's supposed to wash out, but we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be rocking pink hair for a little while.
It's a good look.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
All the cool kids are doing it anyway. So
yeah, I really feel like it's dropped my age at least by a few years. So yeah, I got a lot of compliments. I don't know. It's so much work to keep this kind of color in your hair, but who knows? We'll see. It works for this industry. I mean,
yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I'll be taken more serious because I have pink hair. They're like, she's legit. She has pink hair. I just need tattoos now. Do you have tattoos?
No, I don't. Actually, I do not. Yep.
I don't either. Yeah.
I just never really got into that. And then I don't know. It's just funny how common it is. I mean, it's even like ear piercings, because back in the day, I used to have my ear pierced. And I remember when I was in like elementary school to high school, there's only certain kids that had it, the tough kids had the earrings and it wasn't mainstream. And then now ear piercings for guys is so mainstream, kind of like tattoos. Because back when I was younger, not very many people had tattoos. And, even my dad had a tattoo back then, but it really wasn't as common. Now it's, so common now.
Yeah, tattoos. I was at a military event this last weekend, a reunion for the program I was part of. And it was out near like Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, basically. It was in this town near that area, and it's all military. And it's like everybody has tattoos. It's just part of the community. And I was probably the only female at my table, thinking about all the women that were at the table. I just never got into having a tattoo. Something permanent like that, that's a big commitment. I don't know about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And your taste changes over time too. So, I mean, there's things back when I was younger that I would have liked that I wouldn't like now. So, I mean, you can get it removed, but it's kind of painful and a hassle from what I've heard.
Yeah. And it's like, there's still a remnants there. This is actually an example I use, tattoos, when I'm talking to the younger, like kids under 19 years old, to understand cybersecurity and the impacts of posting online. And I use tattoos as an example because a lot of people don't know, unless you've had a tattoo or know somebody that's had one that has gotten it removed. There's still a remnants of it. Either your skin is bumpy and it shows the outline of where the tattoo was, or there's like an underlying discoloration in it, but it's always there no matter what you do. And it seemed like posting online. You put something out there, you may delete it, you do all the things, but if you know how to do it, you can still find that information out on the net. It will never go away. It will always be there.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, you can use that. It's fine. I'll let you take that. It's not trademarked. So, Phil, you have been in offensive security for 23 years. That is amazing. I mean, I got into IT in 2008, so barely into like 13, 14 years of going IT into cyber. And just in that period of time, so much has changed. I mean, for you, were you always offensive security, even when you first started, or did you start kind of in a different area and then move into being into offensive security?
Yeah, actually, I started out doing sysadmin work back in '97. So September made 24 years in IT and cybersecurity. This coming up January will make 18 years of dedicated cybersecurity. So in cybersecurity, I started out as network security, which a lot of people refer to as operations security. I did that for about the first year and a half, and the company hired a new CISO. And when he come in, he had a more modern idea of what the industry was doing with security, because in our organization, we had just rebranded from, we called our group data security or something along those lines. And this new CISO came in and he put us in different areas because everyone was doing uh, network vulnerability scans, risk assessments. We were doing firewall support, intrusion detection support. Everyone was doing the same thing. And when this new CISO came in, he started an AppSec group, and I got put in the AppSec group, and that's where I kind of got interested in offensive security, because I got to do some web application vulnerability scans, and I managed the third-party pen test that we had done against our applications. So I became aware of the role of pen testing. And so I was in AppSec from about 2005 to March of 2012, and then I moved into offensive security. And I spent the first 5 years consulting. I worked for a couple different consulting companies, I was really glad to get started out that way, because I learned so much more. Because a lot of times you're working for a single company, then you only have experience with that environment. And being a consultant, you get to work in so many different diverse environments with all these different technologies. You're not at the same place, so it's constantly changing. And as like internal pen testers, they have longer to do the pen tests. As a consultant, we had a week, whereas, with my experience of being internal pen tester, we had like 4 weeks. So you just have so much, you're performing so many more pen tests in different environments, and you learn so much more. But I did get tired of all the travel, so that's why I went to work as a resource for a company.
Yeah, being a consultant, you can travel a ton. I know that I have an individual. She's the co-host of our podcast. We both have a podcast on ITSP magazine, and she was a consultant, or is, but still is kind of taken more of the senior director role there at Coalfire. And the travel is insane. You're never home except for the weekends. You fly in late Friday home, and then you're flying out either Sunday, depending on when you need to be at the client side, or Monday. Because like you said, the time is so condensed for being a pen tester coming from the outside in to do it on the organization versus internal. That's a lot. And so when you say you had a week, was that to conduct the pen test and then also do the reporting, write up the report at the end?
Yes, depending on the scope of the pen test. If it was, a
Wow.
normal size pen test, internal or external, we had like a week. Now, if it was internal, external, web application, and Wi-Fi, that could be like 3 or 4 weeks. But back to the point you mentioned, coming home on the weekends, I had that option too. But part of your weekend is spent washing clothes and repacking to head out. So I would typically get home either Friday night or Saturday morning, have to wash clothes and pack, and then I was leaving out Sunday because I had to be on client site Monday. So you'd have to leave out on Sunday. So you really almost lucky just to have a day, to do anything.
That is terrible. Oh my gosh. Woof. I think I say that's terrible too, because I've done so much traveling already being in the military, that when COVID hit, at first, I had actually just gotten back from Europe. My last trip in Europe, I was over there for a month. I had gotten back, and then I was getting ready to head back over, and then COVID hit. And at first, it was kind of a shock for me, because I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't doing anything. But now that I've kind of gotten into this new routine, I don't know if I want to travel like that again. It's hard to get back into it. I think age also dictates it. Like living like the hotel life and consulting life is just, I'm good. I'll let the younger generation kind of do that now. It's not really, and you have to, I'm introverted. I like, so traveling like that all the time, it was just exhausting to me because I just like to have kind of my like routine. I actually prefer working at home. I don't like going into an office. I like to have the option to, but I don't know. How do you feel about that? Did you work in the office space right before COVID hit, and now you're kind of at home and things have slowed down for you? Has it stayed the same since COVID?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I went to back to work for a company I formerly worked for, and it was 100% remote. But actually, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was working for another company where I had to go into the office at least 3 days a week. And I really liked working from home because, from consulting, if I wasn't on customer site, then my office was at home. And I hadn't worked in the office with teammates in a long time. So it was I had a good group of people that I worked with, and I kind of enjoyed going in. And then all of a sudden, after 3 months of being in the office, it was back home working remote. And I kind of thought, I kind of got tired of the commute because it was an awful commute. Some of the traffic can be bad in here in Dallas, but I was commuting from Carrollton to Irving, and commuting in the morning wasn't so bad, but coming home was kind of bad. A lot of times I would stop and have dinner before I came home to wait for traffic to slow down. But just from the commute, after I got back working at home remote, I thought, yeah, I don't want to work in an office again.
No way. Yeah. I enjoy having the option if I wanted to go in and connect with coworkers, and you have an office space with like a meeting room for big meetings. But outside of that, I enjoy just staying at home. I want to go back on a few things that you were talking about and expand a little bit on that for the viewers. You were talking about how you moved into AppSec from 2005 to 2012. Can you kind of just unpack AppSec a little bit more and what that is for the listeners who may be wondering what is AppSec, what is OffSec, what is all of this stuff that they're saying?
Yeah, application security is the team that is responsible for working with the different development groups on securing their applications. Part of this could be giving them input on the software development lifecycle, where during certain updates to the software that you're doing some kind of vulnerability testing, kind of throwing that into the QA process is a good way to handle that. But it's a really kind of interesting area. So anyone that has a software development background and you're interested in security, that's going to be the best path in, because you can actually leverage that development skill. That's just like me having my sysadmin background really helped me get into network pen testing, because I had that background. So you have to understand that technology to be able to secure it and break into it. So yeah, application security. Some other good resources to check out is OWASP.org, the Open Web Application Security Project. A lot of the OWASP top 10 is a lot of times what we test applications against, because it's got some of the most popular type of vulnerabilities that are out, and you test against those. But application security, it was kind of interesting at that time. It wasn't really common. It was kind of just getting started back then, but now it's a lot more common. You see companies where the AppSec team sometimes will perform pen tests or vulnerability scans against the code as they develop it.
Yeah, and I'll put any information that you share on the show, I'm going to make sure that the information is down below. So the OWASP.org, you'll see that information below in the show notes, so you can get to that site and learn more about it. So you went application security, AppSec. You went there, and then you went into OffSec, offensive security. It was kind of that next transition.
Yes.
And you were saying, I took notes because I have to. So you said AppSec 2005 to 12. Is that when you made your pivot into the OffSec and world, like 2012, 2013?
Yes, 2012, March of 2012. The company I worked for, they had acquired the mortgage company I worked for from another bank, and the mortgage industry wasn't doing so great. They had several years. They got like a new CEO of the company, and he said that he would get out of the mortgage industry before he would have his shareholders not get paid dividends again. So whenever we actually had a call in 2011, they were kind of letting us know that either they were trying to sell off the mortgage business. And if it didn't sell off, it was going away altogether. So I kind of started looking for a job. And it was kind of interesting because I interviewed with a company. They were acquiring a cloud company, which slowed down the process of me getting hired. But where it worked out was the company I was working for, they gave you 90 days notice that you were being laid off, and then you got a severance. And so if I'd left sooner, I'd have missed out on that severance. And fortunately, it took the company that was wanting to hire me for the consulting role, it took them until March to finally make the actual offer. Actually, maybe February. I started in March. And so it worked out well. I was able to get my severance and then go to work for them. But it was pretty interesting back then. Offensive security wasn't as well known. I think it's still not understood that well. But back then, most companies didn't have their own pen testing teams. It was usually consultants or contractors that were used for pen testing. Because my experience with pen testing at the mortgage company was we hired a third party to do web app pen tests for us, and it wasn't an internal resource.
Yeah, I want to unpack that a little bit more for the offensive side, because this is something coming from the military and seeing how we operate in the cyberspace. We're very reactionary, and a lot of that has to do with our permissions and our authorities, depending on permissions being what the congressional leaders will allow us to do in certain areas. Like, say there's a mission called Atlantic Resolve in Europe, and it's to assist NATO partners in protecting their infrastructure against near-peer adversaries. Basically, it's like high level. And the stance is very reactionary. We don't really do a lot of offensive operations in that area. But that's very much the military space and the restrictions. And then when I left the military and I came into the corporate private sector late 2019, I noticed that I worked in the CTI space, and I noticed that our offensive operations were really kind of non-existent in a way as far as the intelligence, because a lot of the reporting I was seeing was very strategic level reporting. You couldn't action the intel that you were seeing. It was not actionable intel. And I want to know what your kind of thoughts are around that, on how we are doing in the Western culture in the United States with our offensive security versus being the reactionary or defensive security posture that we have.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is it's not that well understood, offensive security. And one of the big examples of that, I was working for a company as a red team lead, and people actually in the security organization, some people didn't know the difference between a vulnerability scan, a vulnerability assessment, a penetration test, or a red team engagement. And there's a lot of, red teaming is used a lot to generalize all of offensive security. I really think offensive security is a better description, because red team is more adversary emulation. And there's a lot of confusion, even in education, because I've seen education content where they even kind of give this misconception. They make all pen testing sound like red teaming, and it's not. So when you're normally doing a pen test, people know what's going on, that they know it's not malicious activity, because, pen test, you got a limited amount of time to do the pen test. So you're going to have to run vulnerability scanners, and you're going to run port scanners like Nmap, and these different tools that can be kind of loud on your network. So trying to go undetected, that takes longer to perform a test. And so there's misconceptions of that. I've seen different trainings, and I've heard people that are instructors for training companies that, kind of mention this disinformation with that you're trying to go undetected, and that's red teaming. That's not pen testing. So a lot of it's even education, people within the organization. I did a talk for a virtual conference recently on building an effective attack surface management program, because there's not a lot of understanding. That's one area that there needs to be more education for management, IT, and different security groups to really understand how that works. So that, like I said, there's just a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of the pen testing has come about and gotten so popular for PCI compliance. Because when I got started in 2012 in offensive security, most companies didn't have their own pen test teams, but it got to the point where if you're a bank, most banks have a pretty good sized pen test team, because it is really expensive to pay consulting companies to do all of it. So when you're, paying $200 to $300 an hour, and sometimes more than that for a pen test, it can get really expensive if you got, hundreds or thousands of applications, a lot of server and infrastructure to test. That can get expensive real quick. So you need the internal resources. And some of these companies have built this up with people that didn't understand the process. Some companies start a pen test team and they don't have anyone with that knowledge internally. Then they're taking courses and reading things on the internet. Maybe the book they're reading isn't accurate and they're building out their team the wrong way. And then hopefully by trial and error, they kind of get on the right course or hire people with experience along the way to help straighten things out.
Yeah, I'm starting to see going back to what you were talking about pen tests and PCI and banks. I'm starting to see that cybersecurity insurance companies, underwriters are starting to create partnerships with penetration testing companies, or have a pen team that actually works internal to the organization where they can go and facilitate these penetration tests on these companies that they're going to provide insurance to or already provide insurance to, and then conduct quarterly penetration assessments to ensure that they remain, we'll use the word compliant, although we know that compliancy is not security, but that's kind of their framework that they're starting to utilize. And it's still a very much unknown area. I met with a cybersecurity insurance organization recently, and they're doing mostly a plug and play kind of vulnerability scan to first initially identify how vulnerable your organization is. And then from there, in that assessment, they either provide, hey, you're vulnerable here and here. Here's some tooling that you can utilize it's a vetted third-party vendor that you can utilize to get you to this level because you're here. And then once you get to this level, we'll give you that cybersecurity insurance. But pen testers, I think that side of offensive security is not going to go away. If anything, it's just going to become more essential for organizations to have pen testers. And I think that it's almost critical to have an internal pen testing team to each organization at a certain size. I mean, smaller organizations aren't going to be able to afford that, but larger organizations, I feel like it's a critical thing to have like a team that is their sole job. And then that's what they do is they run these pen tests 4 weeks, however long the cycle is. And then they write the reports because it's a constant thing. You're constantly having vulnerabilities and you've got to find them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, one of the things I think all companies need a team of, even if it's 2 or 3 people or something, because there's times whenever you're, unless you've got like a master service agreement signed with a company, trying to get them in a time. And then also these consulting companies don't just have a bunch of extra people sitting around waiting for work. So getting scheduled into those pen tests, it's good to have people internally. And then like whenever the latest vulnerabilities out, tools like Nessus will come out with plugins for their vulnerability scanner that you can look for specific vulnerabilities. So, having a vulnerability scanning team is good. Most companies have someone, where they got a pen test team or not, someone in the vulnerability management team is doing reoccurring vulnerability scans. But to have someone internally that can run Nmap or some other tools to, see maybe, all of a sudden, we're wanting to see what of our assets are accessible from externally. So someone on a pen test team can go do that. And, trying to hire a consulting company to come in and do little things like that, you're not wanting to pay that kind of money for some of those type of testing. And then just having someone internal, like I said, anytime you need to have a test done, it's a little quicker to get that up and running, because if you're doing an internal pen test, although some companies will send out a Dropbox or a remote system that they take in, hook up to the network and perform the pen test externally, there's sometimes, they want people to come on site. When you do that, then there's scheduling someone to escort them in and around the building, get them a badge, get them a space to work in and all that. So there's all that overhead to get someone in to do something like that. So there's a lot of, benefits from having people internal. And then it's someone you already trust within an organization that's been there, opposed to bringing in, a consulting company.
Yeah, and going back to what you were talking about on the same topic, but with education and understanding what offensive security is. And you brought up the very good point about how a lot of people don't understand the difference between a vulnerability scan versus a vulnerability assessment. And I know you're a big influencer in the cybersecurity community. You're an instructor. You do a lot of speaking engagements. What is the, how do I word that? Your passion being an instructor and wanting to teach, is it because of these struggles that you saw in this sector and that was just something you started just forward leaning into to start teaching more of the cybersecurity community on this topic, and then it just kind of unfolded from there?
That is really, I kind of did, I was doing a lot of mentoring before I started teaching, and people that either were wanting to take the OSCP certification, asking for study tips, or people just wanting to become pen testers in general. That's what kind of guided me to become an instructor. So I started teaching at Dallas College in January 2018, and then just as I interacted with students, seeing you know what was missing, what people didn't understand. And this is like even continuing ed students that actually worked in security. So just based on my experiences has kind of grown the topics I brought up, because I did a recent talk on attack surface management programs, because I knew that there was a missing piece there, because people internal outside of the offensive security team did not understand it. There was a need for it. So I've kind of tailored the things I speak on towards what's needed in there. And I have to teach on something I'm passionate about, because all these other things are needed, but I could not teach security plus. It has to be something I'm interested in and something I know really well, because I think otherwise, if I'm teaching something that I hadn't worked in defensive security in a long time, I would need to go back and study up on it. But teaching something that I work in actively, it's a lot easier to ask the question, to answer questions, as well as share my experience and stories. Because some of the things that are very more motivational to people I teach is the stories, sharing the stories, from pen tests and different types of hacks and stuff like that I've done, help motivate and help people on their learning path.
Hence why you have a book out too, talking about sharing your journey and your stories. You wrote the Pentester's Blueprint. Was that the premise behind that book? Was that because of your passion and you felt the need and desire to want to share that? Actually, let's take a step back. Because I just wrote a book, and
Mhm.
I'm always curious to find out what drove you to do that, because writing a book is not an easy task, and it takes a
No,
lot of time, a lot of dedication. You have to be passionate about the subject, which I know that you're very passionate about pen testing. But writing a book, it's that next level of passion, because there is a time where you hit a lull or it sucks and you got to keep pushing. So what encouraged you to decide, hey, I want to write this book for the community and put this content out there, my thoughts to the community?
yeah. At one time, I thought it would be cool to write a book and want to write a book. And a friend of mine and myself had a project that we were working on at one time. And the book started out, it was going to be a written book. I had the idea because I gave a talk in a speech class about securing your PC and all the stuff to help end users. And I gave this talk and talked to my friend that was wanting to write a book on it. He was interested in it. And then we went down the path of this is like back in 2001 or 2000, back in 2002, 2001. And it was going to be an audio book, and there was going to be, it would be self-reading. They didn't have much like that. So it turned into a programming project, and yeah, it just didn't really progress from there. So there's been the interest there, but I was in the Tribe of Hackers Red Team book, and I was posting on Twitter about being in the book or whatever. And Wylie Publishing reached out to me and asked me if I was interested in writing a book. And so after giving my pen test blueprint talk, is actually the pen tester blueprint originated from a talk I gave each semester at the beginning of class on how to become a pen tester. So that was the first day of class lecture. Some of the other instructors at the college asked me to come in and talk to their security classes about pen testing. So I gave that several times. So by November of 2018, besides DFW, the Dallas Fort Worth Security B-Sides Conference was coming up, and I decided to give it as a conference talk. And just the interest from it that I got from the people watching, they really liked it, because over the years there's a lot of great books out there on pen testing, how to do pen testing and stuff to learn, but there really wasn't anything out there saying, yeah, you need to know networking, you need to know operating systems, the prerequisites to become a pen tester. There was really something missing there. And also it was a way to, one of the things I noticed after giving my pen tester blueprint talk, I gave it at quite a few conferences, and it was interesting. I would come up to conferences and speak on it, and a lot of people hadn't heard the talk. And so I thought, there's a lot of people out there that are not hearing this talk that are wanting to get started as pen testers. And I thought that, if you write a book, people that don't even know you can find it because they're on Amazon or wherever they purchase books, and they run across the book. They get books recommended from friends. So I knew it was a way to get that information out there on a broader scale and help more people. So that was a lot of the motivation.
I love it. I need to pick up the book. I actually have a threat hunt course that I purchased through INE a while back before they even did their monthly package that you can do, or yearly. It's yearly, the yearly fee. And it ties in, it actually goes into some pen testing and everything. And I saw your book and I'm like, man, it's interesting because in the military, they push the ethical hacking and pen testing as like one of the top courses that you're supposed to go to. But being a warrant officer and going into cyber from electronic warfare, I didn't get the same opportunity as some of the younger soldiers to be able to go through like the ethical hacking and the pen test courses. I go to like all the planning courses, all the semi-fun, but not really fun operational, no really keys on, your hands-on keyboard. It's more of the planning and operation of the penetration. Like I've run teams who do the penetration testing, but I know about the systems and see how they operate and have enough knowledge, but I need to get I actually need to get into it and get involved in it. So I'll have to check out the book. And if you guys are interested in it and you're watching this, information's down below. Highly encourage you to go and grab that book, the Pen Tester Blueprints. So for any of our viewers that are listening to this and are like, oh, because when you get into cybersecurity the first time, just like I was talking about in the military, they still have the conception of like ethical hacking and pen testing because it's super sexy sounding. What is your advice to individuals that are thinking about going into this particular career field? Maybe it's like, we'll say offensive security, but in particularly they're looking at going into pen testing. Is there any advice that you could provide to them to help guide them into this career field?
Sure. One of the things I want to bring up too before we get into that is anyone wanting to get into cybersecurity. There's a lot of really cool areas like the threat intelligence, threat hunting. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there, and pen testing is not easy. It's learning to hack was one of the most difficult things that I've learned how to do. And I was a sysadmin. I administered, Windows server environments, Novell NetWare, Linux, a lot of these other different environments. And this is still one of the most difficult areas, but the hands-on stuff is going to be really, really important. And one of the best areas I think to start out with is Try Hack Me, because Try Hack Me is educational. They've got a lot of free content on there, and you definitely got to get the hands-on, because just reading about it's not going to help you perform a pen test. And then I like other resources like Hack the Box, because Hack the Box gets a little more difficult. They do have Hack the Box Academy now that's really good, because one of the former directors for eLearn Security and INE over the cybersecurity content went to work there. And it's a really good hands-on environment. And I've known people that spent like a year working in Hack the Box and then took the OSCP certification course and passed it the first try, because they're really getting the hands-on experience. You can, like, going back to reading, you can read about it, and you can read a lot of books, but unless you're trying the tools and techniques and stuff like that, it's really going to be hard to learn that. So kind of getting started with Try Hack Me, kind of start out with, because it's a little easier. It's a little more beginner level than graduate on to Hack the Box. And as far as certifications, I think the OSCP is a good one. I hear a lot of people complain about the try harder mentality, but I can tell you one of the things that whenever I was moving over from AppSec to pen testing, I needed to learn how to hack. And the thing about it is that the Try Hack Me, or the try harder mentality, pushes people to try harder. There's a lot more information out there that can help you prepare for the OSCP, just like Rana Khalil. I had her on my show recently. She has some stuff on Medium on the OSCP. TJ Knoll has some good write-ups on boxes that are similar to OSCP boxes. So it's a really good way to push. I mean, when some of the other learning methods, they give you information on it, but there they really force you to figure it out on your own. But
Yeah, there's so much free stuff out there that the viewers can go and get into. I put down the Try Hack Me, Hack the Box Academy, so I'll be adding that. That'll be in the show notes below. Those are all great resources. So the OSCP, I want to dig into that a little bit more because that is the OSCP is like the coveted certification for a pen tester to get, but it's really hard. And people, I don't think, fully understand how hard the test is. Can you just kind of unpack that a little bit and your thoughts around that, or your thoughts on how a viewer can prepare properly for that test?
yeah, and part of the reason it's such a big draw for companies that are looking for pen testers is this shows that you can hack. I mean, running vulnerability scanners, and just about it, that's not that difficult to learn. There's a lot of other things in pen testing are not that difficult. But one of the things I also say too is the way the OSCP is, it really is more like the way boutique pen test firms operate. So some of those pen test firms, they go in and they're not really concerned with wasting a lot of time with SSL and TLS related vulnerabilities on certificates. They'll just find those things and kind of note it, but they're going after things that can be exploited. And a pen test report that you're getting from a company like that's going to be much different than just your normal run of the mill consulting company. It's some cases, some of the run of the mill consulting companies, it may look, pretty similar to a Nessus vulnerability scan, although some things are being exploited. When you get into some of these boutique pen testing firms, they're, some of them writing their own 0 days and hacking into things that there are not exploits for yet. But I mean, it's a little bit different because within some of the major differences between the OSCP and an actual pen test is you're going to be running vulnerability scanners. Vulnerability scanners are not allowed on the exam. Metasploit, as a pen tester, you can use that as many times as you want to on a job. But through the OSCP certification, you can use it like one time, and there's only certain systems that you can use it on. So that's not so much what you see in the real world, but the thing is they're training you to be a better hacker and a better pen tester is the reasoning behind that. So if you really want to do that, then I would start out, like you're mentioning, Hack the Box and Try Hack Me. I'd start out with Try Hack Me, learn the basics, because they've got like several offensive security related courses in there that I think one of them is kind of supposed to help you prepare for the OSCP, because I forget what it has, offensive security or offensive in the title, and it's kind of a prep course for like the OSCP. So I would use those to get through all the Try Hack Me stuff and then move on to Hack the Box. And offensive security also has their own environment, kind of like Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, is called Proving Grounds. And so Proving Grounds, they take retired systems from the OSCP lab and OSCP exam environments. They retire them and put them in that environment. So you'll be able to go through and hack on systems that are similar to what's in the OSCP, but not currently in the OSCP.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That is great. I love that. And I love how you broke that down, the OSCP. Now, if individuals want to reach out to you, maybe they have questions for this particular career field, pen testing, the OSCP, what is the best way for them to be able to reach you?
Through LinkedIn or Twitter?
Oh,
Because I'm
perfect.
pretty good at answering my DMs. LinkedIn is probably one of the better ones for people that I don't know, but LinkedIn or Twitter are good places to contact me.
All right. Information will be down below. Before we hop off here, Phil, is there anything you're cooking up right now? Like, do you have plans for a new book? I mean, you've got a lot of fires going. You're a podcaster. You work full time. You've got to have some things in the background that maybe you're like thinking about doing, maybe starting your own company, maybe launching a new application, anything at all that you can share with us?
Yeah, some of the things I'm looking at is I do a lot of free conference training, and I was looking into doing some paid conference training, getting more into that space. And then also I founded a group called the Pwn School Project that we used to have 2 monthly meetings, and they were more education based. And I rebranded my Denton meetings as DEF CON group 940. I made it a DEF CON group to help bring more brand awareness, to help build that group in Denton up a little bit more. And it seemed to be successful so far, because someone goes out on the DEF CON group list, they're in the Denton area, they'll be able to find it easier. And we had like one of our second largest meetings we've had since I started hosting meetings in Denton. Started hosting them in August 2018. And prior to this, our biggest meeting was when Ben 10 from Trusted Sec did a workshop for us. We had a little under 50 people show up. And so our meeting last week, our first DC 940 meeting, we had like a little over 40 people show up. But what I'm doing though, is I wanted to take where I was doing the Dallas meeting had went virtual. I really want to make that more educational. So build out more pen testing content, more beginner level type stuff to help people, go through that. And then they're ready to go on to stuff like start studying for the OSCP. So I'm wanting to make that more educational.
I love that. I'll have to get all that information from you so I can add it to the notes below for anybody that wants to maybe participate. Maybe they're in the Denton area and they can reach out to you. Now, do you have to be in the Denton area to be part of that group?
Well, I'm not sure yet whether we're going to stream those meetings or not, because,
Okay.
with something.
So they're in person.
Yeah. The Denton meeting is in person.
Got it.
The one that was previously the Dallas Pwn School meeting has been virtual. So that's like the third Wednesday of the month. But like I said, that's I'm really wanting to transition that into more educational, and and a lot of the conference workshops I do for free, I do under the Pwn School brand.
I love that. Awesome. Phil, you have been fantastic. So glad that we were able to make some time and connect. And then you graciously came onto the show and shared your story with everybody. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was an honor.
Pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
There you have it from Phillip Wylie. Make sure that you go out and subscribe to his podcast. It's an ITSP Magazine podcast, and the name is the Hacker Factory Podcast. You can also find him on Twitter and LinkedIn. All of his socials will be down below. Thank you guys again for your continued support. And if you're watching this for the first time and you like this content, go ahead and subscribe and like and share it with others. I do weekly videos around cybersecurity to help you in your journey in your career. Thanks again. See you guys next week.